Welcome to the third part. It is the third part. Welcome to the third part of the Plymouth wiring. In this video, I have no idea what we're going to do. Normally, I do this welcome business at the end before or after I'm finished doing everything, so I know exactly what we've done, but in this one I haven't started yet. But we do talk about pieces of coloured plastic and aluminium bits of tube and valve radios or tube radios. Now I could probably restore this, but it would take another 5 videos. Not sure if I will or not sure if I even know how to, but I reckon I could do it. But anyway, hope you enjoy. Well, I'm going to have to change a few things which I didn't originally intend to change. Now, some of it is because I put another feed in. Of course, the headlamp power feed from the ignition switch I've deleted because we've got our own separate feed there, and we've still got the cigarette lighter coming onto there. I've got large black power feed coming in from the fuse box instead of that power feed for the headlamp. The yellow start trigger to the solenoid stays as put, and these ones here on the ignition side stay as well. So there's a black one for the radio, a dark blue one for the coil positive, and 2 dark blue and white ones which go up to the generator and all pressure lights, which then earth through their senders or through their circuits. Now the accessory one's quite different. Originally there was the temperature gauge feeding by itself off a black wire, and a fuel gauge feeding off a black wire. Then all these were ganged onto the fuel gauge. One of them's the flasher can, the reverse lights and the heater fan. So I'm taking them off the fuel gauge so the fuel and temp only have one black positive feed, and then the other wire from those will go off to their appropriate senders, and I'll have to join these up or stick them in 2 terminals, so I'll get those 4 feeds off there that way. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 feeds off that accessory, but the accessory, if you look at it, here's the switch here, and I've just drawn a map of the back, if you can see that sort of shape there, and that's what these do. These are sort of labelled really, really well. And the accessory feed isn't like some accessory feeds you see, in that they don't, it stays active on ignition as well. So it's just like a double sort of ignition circuit, if you know what I mean. So if I plonk the power in here, we haven't got a sausage anywhere. Now that's the key release. Of course, if I turn it back to accessory, we've just got the accessory one lit onto ignition. Hang on, yes, we got that and that, so they're both alive. That sounds intermittent, maybe that's dirty. And of course start, if I leave it on start, we've got that one as well. So that's all working. So we need to, with ignition on, this is actually quite surprising because you would think I might change this again. I might put the radio on accessory and put more. I actually wouldn't mind leaving the coil by itself on ignition. I might just put the radio on accessory as well. I don't think flasher cans need to be on accessory. They can be, the indicator can be on ignition. So I'll have a look at it and make my mind up. Just depends how many sort of conductors we've all got going into one terminal. I don't want it to be too messy, but we'll figure something out. I'll have a look now. Now if we look at our original loom, these are the labels I put on which can come off. They're redundant. That's the one coming off the headlight obviously, and we've got a few others going off that, and that also goes off to fuel gauges and all this sort of stuff. I'll pull this apart and just see what I can reuse. Some of this I can reuse. Light sockets and some of the cabling for those will be fine to use. So we'll go through this and I'll explain what I've done when I've figured it out. So again, we're unwrapping wires, and the reason I'm doing this is just to sort of check lengths out and just tidy up what I'm doing to see what's left. So this dark blue from the ignition switch actually goes into a junction for these 2 generator and all pressure warning lights, which that one is shaped by the look. Oh no, you can just pull that through, that's cool. And I wouldn't mind using them again. You know, I'm not trying to be scungy, but if I can use some original kit from this, I'm certainly going to do it. So I'm going to continue here, get our overspray ridden loom tape off, and see what's left. So here's a portion of loom I wouldn't mind using some of again. But of course we have the oil pressure, I think is this orange one. And the bad part about it is you can see when you start bending it, that insulation's cracking. And that's what I mean, when they go stiff, it's not too good. That part's good though, there's nothing wrong with the sort of interior bit. It is just, it's just a little bit rigid. I really want to use this again. The red, of course, that goes off to the generator, or to the regulator, sorry, that's all stiff up here, so I can sort of cut that off. But I might end up, see look, it's nice and rigid there. I wonder if there's been a chemical reaction or something between where the electrical tape was, because there shouldn't be too much heat. That's as stiff as a board. I reckon that'll break if I bend it. It's not good. Yeah, look. It just isn't good. So I'm going to solder and heat shrink new cable onto that, and just see what I'm left with. See, that's not too bad there. So, and of course this bit's lovely. There's nothing at all wrong with that. But where it's discoloured, well, that's all good there. But of course, if you're changing sort of here and here, you might as well just change the whole length, you know. But that's actually a good bit from the switch. That came from the switch, from the ignition switch. So, anyway, that's one bit that we can sort of work on now and put into the car. Well, I've got this loom here for the warning lights sorted out, of course. Plymouth do use two lots of the same colour for different jobs, if you know what I mean. So it's lots of double ups with browns and dark greens and blues and all this sort of stuff. Here is our generator and charge warning light loom. Of course, we've got a feed coming in from the ignition switch. This goes off to the coil, this blue one. Red one goes to the voltage regulator. And of course, the orange one goes to the oil pressure sender. Now, I got these other colours. There's lots of pink that does things like interior lights and that sort of thing in the car. There's lots of pink wires, lots of orange, and the orange does have length in this one too, so that I don't have to plug up behind the dash by looking through a small gap. I can just sort of have it flop down onto the column, and that goes to headlight switch. That's for the dash illumination. Purples and all this sort of stuff. I think that goes to the, where's the purple one go? Oh, I've forgotten. I can't remember where it goes. They use it for temperature sender unit, that's right. That goes to the temperature sender unit. And so, yeah, there are quite a few instances where there's several of each colour. So I had to get these. These are that's a bit of red there. Here's our pink, our orange, our purple. And of course now I can finish wiring. Oddly enough, the pink's also used for the, did I mention the interior light? I got them through a supplier, and look, I'm going to put a phone number at the bottom. It's Several Auto Electrics, and of course they work out of Ringwood. That's Alex, he's a good friend of mine. And he's my go-to guy. If I need to know anything, I ask him. But it's worth noting, and I should have said this right from the outset, starting this job, that if you don't know what to do, then give it to a qualified auto electrician. And of course he's the one to go to. I wouldn't ring up and ask him about colours of wires and all this sort of stuff. I don't think he'll appreciate that, but if you need work done, he's certainly the guy to go to. And of course, he's familiar with lots of cars like this. He does Cadillacs, he does all sorts of stuff. There's not much he doesn't know. In fact, I've never known him to be unsure of any question I've asked him. He's always had an answer right at the forefront of his mind. So that's that phone number down the bottom of the screen. You'll see it there. Gentleman's name's Alex. Be sure to send your vehicle to him if you need auto electrical work done. Right, so we've come a long way. We're not far from the end now. Of course, this is a simple loom, very simple, and I've still taken notes and sort of added them to drawings. Things like pinouts, all sorts of stuff. Mainly because I changed the configuration of the thing so much. Now there's a lot coming off. I think I've already mentioned what comes off the back of the fuel gauge. That just astounded me. But yeah, we're sort of almost ready. So all we've got left is that. That's it. That's all that's left of the old loom. So we'll pull it apart. And we're going to salvage, because I don't want to take off the indicator switch. I don't actually want to change the plug on the stalk. I just want to test it or make sure it works, but I can change these conductors, of course. This just tells where they go. That goes to the flasher can. I'm going to just lengthen a couple of these conductors, and I'm going to keep that one. And that's the telltale, that's the indicator telltale. The rest of this stuff can go and or be replaced. Of course, some of it goes off to the rear loom. Some of it goes to the brake light switch, which has got a very odd way of being wired because it wires through the indicator switch, given that there's no separate indicator lights on the car. They have flashing brake lights on one side when you turn in that direction. Fuel gauge, of course, and of course we've got lots of pink now, so we can do, that goes to the light switch and the brake light. So it's weird how it's wired, but it's weird how it's wired. But you know what, we can do something with this. Well, it sounds like the crows are out again. I've pulled this wire out from in the steering column. This is the one for the horn where it earths at the end, for your horn button, which is sort of fits on here. That's the switch for it there. And that looks like it needs a clean up as well. And of course this pokes through and plugs into there, and that's where the horn earths out. And of course it's beautiful thick rubbery cable. It's actually a rubber insulation. I thought I'd unwind it because it was covered in electrical tape, and no surprises there. It's perished. You can see that, but it's all sort of splitting away. Of course, as we come up here, those birds really annoy me. It's lost its insulation. This was the problem in houses that were wired in the 50s and 60s here in Australia. Of course, this is precisely what they did. My first house had this too, where the insulation just falls off. And then you have sort of active and neutral sitting in the nude behind a light fitting. That was very, very common. And it was black rubber insulation. And so, of course, now with plastic, things are a little bit safer. We've got this sort of, it feels like rubbery flex. It's around about the same core diameter. And it's plastic insulated. And, of course, if we want to, we can try and sort of feed it down tubing like this, but it might be difficult to get in. Or heat shrink or something, just to give it a bit more protection. But I think this is going to be all right. The wall thickness of the insulation is sort of similar to what the rubber was. But it is a more resilient product. Well, actually the rubber's more resilient, but as it ages, the plastic's going to be better. So I think that's about the same rating, I'm not really sure. And so I just pulled that out of the steering column. When you pull these sorts of things out, though, make sure you sort of fit a snare to the end of it so you can sort of pull it through, and there's still a wire in there that you can attach the new one to and pull it the other way. If there's not, you're going to be feeding wire down into this column, which you could probably get in quite easily, but it can also be difficult. It's difficult on English cars. These American ones, or this one, being one of the few American cars I've worked on, seems to be easy anyhow. So I'm just going to cut that off. So I'll see if I've got another one of those terminals. Of course, here's our little snare wire. I'm just going to pop that nut off. The wheel's loose. And that should just pull off. There we go. What can I do with you? I'm going to put you on the ground. That wheel's had it. I've been looking at other ones, but they seem to have a different pattern in them. Take that spring out. And then we can undo this indicator thing. That seems awfully sloppy, that switch. Just want to pop that switch out and have a bit of a look at it. The switch has a screw up in there, behind there, and there's one behind there as well. And that seems to free up, I'm just going to try and hold the light and my camera, that seems to free up the assembly. And I want to get that out because I want to check the integrity of the switch. Right, so I'm just going to get that switch out. There's a big block connector on the bottom, which I'm probably going to replace anyway. So I've got to weasel this off. I've got to turn the camera off because I haven't got enough hands. Well, the wiring's blocked by the connector. If I can see... Struth, where is it? There. It won't fit through the through its recessed base. I don't really want to cut that off, and because it means shortening it, soldering it's going to be a pain. The wiring's beautiful and stuff, nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to put this snare back in here. Let's get that out of the way. But what's really lovely about this is, of course, I can take these screws out, but I can also get in behind it with the contact sprays. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to run a multimeter across the back because it's not connected anywhere else, and just check the integrity of the switch, and if it works, I'll just pop it back in. What's a bit odd about this is it doesn't have one wire coming off to left and then branching off to front and rear and one going to right doing the same thing. It actually has separate right oh sorry, front and rear feeds on the same side of the switch is acting on, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to do that. And just, gee, that stuff smells nice. It's really solventy. So we're going for continuity again. Of course, the red one's coming in, which is this little guy here. Actually, I don't think I'll be able to put those on. I've got a legend of what each of these does. So of course white goes to the stop lamp switch, so I would have thought that it'd be piggybacked off the back of the red. I'm not sure what the story with that is. So if I go light green, I'm going to turn the switch. That works. So which is, so left, light green's the left, light green's the left, yep, and dark green is the other left, which is working, which they are. So that switch actually seems to be really, really good. The only thing that so I'm a bit mystified about is the fact that that white wire goes to the brake light switch. I've just got to look ahead in the circuit. Another thing to keep in mind, which I didn't know, I had a bit of trouble putting the steering wheel back on. Plymouth use a master spline, and so it can only go on one way. So any crookedness in the wheel has to be taken out in the front end alignment. Just got to make sure this wire is nice and straight. It's not going to coil up, which this is. And we just want to tie it off. I'm just going to create a loop. Oops. Oh my gosh. Here we go. And I'll just twist that together. And of course, this one here, I can just twist together on the other way around. And then draw it through. You can pop some electrical tape over that. But we're just using it as a snare. And we're through. Of course, here we have the horn contact ring, and I've just hit it with the meter and it's a little bit sporadic. This is going to be inclined to some sort of arcing, particularly with such heavy current draw on the horn. So it's got some sort of bakelite material on one side and it's metal on the other, which is where it is. And of course the contact goes in there. So I've just got a little bit of Scotch-Brite. I'm not sure how effective it's going to be. I'm just going to squeeze it in between and just run it round. And we should get a reliable connection this way, because we're sort of getting rid of not just any pitting that's happened, but also you're looking at probably carbon deposits from all that arcing, you know. So the idea is to go around like this. The one thing I've noticed, they always talk about the poor quality of these cars when they were new. And I'll tell you what, I've noticed that the parts fit together absolutely beautifully. The indicator switch, for example, sits in a cradle. You can't get it wrong. So therefore the screws just fit absolutely perfectly. It's beautiful the way they've done it. And I'm just going to give it, whoa, I might take that nozzle out. This stuff, this is wonderful, this stuff. It's from J-Car. It's only, how much was it? It hasn't got a price. It was like $8 or something. It wasn't much at all. I'm just going to go around and give it a... It's got like a solvent. It smells a bit like brake clean, but it has a slightly oily feeling about it. We'll give that a go, eh? I might just scratch that up a bit. Get some sort of reliable contact on it. Not much happening there. It's not bad. It's not bad. A bit of finessing and I reckon that'll be cool. And there's flies in here. So I'm going to have to do some of the soldering in the car because just to get lengths right. But I do want it so there's plenty of flex. It's tied back nicely and it's routed to its proper direction correctly. Before we do too much more, we do have to check some current with this little thing here. I had one of these a while ago and it broke. I've just bought another one. These are like $15 off eBay. and they show you what current draw various components have, heater fans and all that. The manual also tells you as well, but given that they're 60 years old, they're likely to suck a bit more current. I think the only thing sort of likely to cause some concern are the horns. There's something like 8.9 amps each, so there's almost 20 amps worth of horn there. You'll probably find when you start looking for or looking to replicate colours of wires that are there and all this sort of stuff, it does blow the cost out a little bit because you're buying additional wire, but it just worried me a little bit that it was there were so many conductors with the same colour, that were the same colour, so I'm just going to tin that, and so that's the reason. I want to stay true to the Plymouth diagram, if you know what I mean, so that way I reckon we get a better result, looks better, and it's also easier to fault find later if you need to. If I stick that on, I'm just going to dot the top of that off. Oh, where are my pliers? I'll use these. It's nice and squished. Probably lose all the heat out through my pliers. Nipex tools. Always get Nipex tools. They're brilliant. Cool. That is going nowhere. I've let it cool off a bit because otherwise I'll put this up and it'll shrink before I get a chance to heat it up. That's cool. And we've got all new wiring. Doesn't it look cool? So that's solid as a rock. I'll try and get this up. It's tight around these cables. There we go. And so things like this, what I'll do is I'll stick it in the car, probably put too much heat in there. I'll stick it in the car, map them out, and have that sitting at the headlight ready. I think that's pin A on the headlight switch. But we just put a bit of masking tape around there. Once we plug it into the back of the headlight switch, you can just pull that off. Alright, so that's the loom made. So that goes off to the rear loom. I haven't got two of the conductors in there because I want to sort of rough it into the car to see how long they are, so they're not sort of looped around or anything. I want them all nice and straight and nice, just like that. And of course the male part of that I'll use when I make the new rear portion of the wiring loom. So that's all good. I've had to use the indicator switch, the existing indicator switch plug, because I didn't want to cut the other one off the indicator. Of course that goes off to the front lights. And we've got other ones going to the rear, which is that. And we've got other ones, indicator telltale. So that's all done. That can go back in the car. So I'm sort of doing bits and pieces and putting it in the car as I can. That's a great example that I lengthened before that I just mentioned previously. And of course that will allow that to go to the headlight switch. So that'll all get trimmed as it gets roughed in. Yeah, just let me concentrate for 2 secs. Right, so we've just got these two wires here on the top, the black and the red one. That's the pair that go down to the high beam switch, which I haven't decided yet what I'm doing with. Of course, the rest of it's done. I've just got to join up the horn. What have we got? It's all sort of temporarily taped with masking tape at the moment. Of course, these ones have to go into the cabin. And of course, we've got the loom along the back. I've got to get some fabric tape to make it look sort of period correct and all. We've got the sender wire here. Now that was the only one that sort of goes over the engine. I might sort of put it inside a bit of vacuum tube, which I can strap to the Advance and just sort of sneak it around here underneath the fuel line. I've also put in another one here. Of course, all this black insulation is going to come off. That's a windscreen washer feed, and it's just sort of capped off at the moment. It's not connected to anything, because I haven't decided yet what sort I'm going to use. So once those few wires are terminated and I've decided what I'm doing with this high beam switch, I'm going to unplug it all from the fuses and regulators, all sorts of things, so I can try and do a nice neat tape job with the fabric tape. And of course that means sort of undoing it from here and redoing this bit here to the horn as well. One fella thought this horn was an earth, but the earth is actually behind it there. So we're still going. Really? Really? I wouldn't mess with that car. That car's not very nice. Right, well, I've got wiring all roughed in, all up here, and you can see it's all a bit of bird's breakfast down there, but as I do things, there's the ignition switch down there. The headlight switch I've got all wired up. I'm just going to use small cable ties. I don't want to wrap this under here, just so I can see where I'm up to. All right, yeah. Okay, so we're ready to start working on the instrument cluster. And I've sort of pulled it apart. This is a 57 one, given that it's got all little dots around it. I think the 58s had stars or something. They do look nicer. I think there's an American chappie doing these things, Christine ones, which have sort of a chrome surround with little stars and all that. It looks much better than this one, but at the moment this will do. The previous owners painted, I've sort of got it leaning on an old wind cheater so it doesn't get marked up. Now, the purpose of this thing is I've cut out little bits of cardboard which I can slide in behind the hands and paint them. I've got this special Mustang ex-USA needle paint, and you could probably do it by just having a steady hand, but I don't want to risk anything, so I'm just going to slide cardboard under here, try not to upset it, and I don't want to hit the spring or anything like that, to just effectively mask it off, if you know what I mean. So that way I've got a sort of a safe way of doing it because I'm not very steady. I've also got some my phone, which has a torch or a flashlight, which I can stick down like that. And these little stands which give light for indicators and high beam lights. I've made some aluminium stands because I didn't have the right cardboard, and I've got these bits of acrylic. Now, that's got paper on the back of it. Some of them, there's a green one, might be a little bit translucent. I've got standard acrylic, which I can try, but I don't think they'll let enough light through, so I've got to sort of figure this out. Might have to put some white paper or something behind it to diffuse that a little bit. So I've got to make those. And there was something else I wanted to talk about. Can't remember. Anyway, we'll start doing these needles, I think. Let's start. I've got it going now. All right then.
Fancy.
Fancy. This is very fancy. Okay. So I bought this because my beautiful wife, I had one of these for years and I lost it because my wife can't find it. She was using it for something. Whenever these turn up on YouTube, I always get dubious straight away because most people use these are making things like bar heaters out of isopolt sticks and plugging them in the mains, and how they don't blow themselves up I don't know. But I'm going to use this as well to sort of stick those bits of acrylic sheet onto those aluminium stands. Now really, to execute this thing effectively, it should really... I don't know if this is acrylic or solvent-based paint. I'm just going to brush this on. Yeah. It's awfully thin, actually. Looks like it's sticking quite well, though. So I'm just going to go around and do these needles. I might have to give them 2 coats. Really, the best thing to do is to wash them down with solvent, but because they move so easily, I don't want to risk damaging them. I might have to give them 2 coats. It doesn't look like it's covering all that well. I'll leave that paper there for now. I've got these ones done. Isn't that pretty? How pretty is that? I'm impressed. Not a very steady hammer, that sort of thing, which is why I use the sort of manila fold of cardboard. They're templates I made, that original piece of cardboard for the 351 badges on the XW, so it's been kicking around for a while. But there's not much effort and you get a pretty good result. Whoop, there we go, just like that. So that's cool. So that can sit there and dry, and in the meantime I'm going to tackle these other things and talk a little bit about these little stand tube things I'm making. Now, in here in Australia we use blue for high beam, but I'm going to go with what Plymouth did and use red. And so I've still got to work out how to diffuse them properly. Now this thing here, this broke off, and I've got to make sure this is absolutely lined up correctly so that the oil and amps warning lights stay lit, or at least they're not cross lit, if you know what I mean. We don't get leak through. So there's a little cardboard divider, and there's a sort of a cardboard hat in the bottom, and you can see it's just cellophane type stuff. It's just tape really, and it's absolutely shagged. Can't use that. And of course that would sit in the bottom of that cylinder like this, with a divider, cardboard divider, over the top. And then it had this steel thing, which is what the globe's sort of attached to, if you know what I mean, that light them up. So we've got to make sure we get that right, otherwise it's going to be rank. I cut out at work, out of a scrap, a piece of red acrylic, which is the clear stuff. And as I said before, it's sort of, where's my phone? It just doesn't look great with, you can leave the plastic on the back or the paper on the back. I was going to put that back again. Where's that clear bit with the paper on it? But it's not a great red. It's got like a grainy sort of look about it. Now that doesn't probably matter. At a pinch I could probably leave that. The green's the same. There's a bit of green. I mean, I could probably even leave that. I don't know. It just doesn't look... It doesn't look right without paper on it, but they're only really, really small holes. But on these bits here, like that bit, they're sort of bigger warning lights. And I think it looks crappy. So, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure whether to maybe get a bit of... I'll try this. We'll experiment. But this is just A4 80 GSM photocopy paper. So perhaps if I use that on there, it's still going to have a grainy look about it. So guess what? I've not got the foggiest notion what to do. Because even that doesn't look much different from that. It's a bit better. But I don't know. Hang on. Guys! I've just got the camera on. Rightio, so we'll try that. I probably got these the wrong way. I'm just going to look at my photos. If they're the wrong way, I'll just take them out and redo them. Where's that? There. So, that'll do for now. Right. So, we've got a red light. Oops. A green light, which still could be the wrong way around. We've got oil. Hang on, where is it? Oil should be there. And amp should be underneath it. So now we're finished with art and craft subject. We can now move on to something I'm probably a bit better at. Right, so I'm just hooking up this meter to a battery. I've not used this meter before, it's a new one. Oops. And it says watt. And then it gives you all this stuff. These are $15. They're cheap. It's similar to one I had before, but I sort of destroyed it. I'll just lower the camera a tiny bit here, like that, so we can probably see it a little bit better. Sorry about my really, really bad movement. I just want to keep those two conductors separated so you can see the screen. Alright then, time for some more maths. Now, we know that power equals voltage multiplied by current. We want to find out, I know that's 21 watts, I'm just going to check the accuracy. So to find out that it's, 21 over 12, so 21 watts over 12 volts equals 1 3/4 or something, 1.7. So that's sort of in the ballpark what we're looking for. So I'm just going to connect it up now. Hopefully I don't short it. And we've got 24.4 at 1.9 amps, which is a bit about right. So before we go putting the heater fan on, or wiring the heater fan, I think the earth is this one down the bottom here. Let's see if it works first. Here we go. About 4 amps. Let's go for high speed. So that's 7 amps. So our 15 amp wire is absolutely cool for that. Oh, I am excited. That's good. Right, so we're nearly ready to run a few tests on our Plymouth wiring. Of course, one of the last ones we have to do, what wires we have to do, is underneath. And if you can just let me lie down for a moment. It is the neutral start switch, which is that one coming down at the back. Where'd it go? There it is, that one there. So that's not too hard, it's only a single wire. And the rest of it looks pretty good. So I'm just sort of gearing up to do that. It is a bit of a sight to behold on here, this car. It's a lovely condition. Oh, and there's one more one too. Hang on, where is it? I think... Oh, it's true. Oh, is it up there? I think it's up here. And that is the... Is that it? What's that? That's a body mount, you idiot. Hang on, where is it? I can't find it. Where the hell is it? It's the dip switch. Yes, it is. It's up in there. Hang on, there. That one. And that was sort of rooted really badly, so I've got to sort of bring the loom down, sort of down, then up yonder, if you know what I mean, to get into the engine bay. So if that switch doesn't work, I'll just wire in a new one inside the car. So I'm starting to put this all back together, and I've already made a mistake in that the high beam warning light comes on low beam, so I've got it wired in correctly. I also have to get a new flasher cam. So that's not cool, but, well, it doesn't matter much. But what I'm grappling with is down in there. See that orange wire? That is the feed wire for the light, the backlight, the one I had trouble with. I'm just going to, I can't see, I've got the phone in the way, but I'm just going to get a hook. And these cars are actually fraught with little traps here and there. This is just a hook I made to clean drains out. And I'm just going to pull it out of the way. Hang on, I can't get it. It's too hard to coordinate the camera. Here we go. Just want to get it up out of the way. Is that out of the way there? And lift it clear. Just so that when I put that nut on, it doesn't get caught. I'm just going to turn the camera off now and have another go at it, just so I can lift it out of the way, because it's too hard to do two things and my sort of coordinating the two things. Here's the nut for it here. I'm just going to put a bit of electrical tape on there, just so that that socket can hang on to it, and I can sort of feed it down through this hole here and do it up. And of course we have our nut fitted and it's all secured. Of course, here's the courtesy light, or the illumination for the push button auto. I can just sort of push that down again, and that can all be wired up. The next thing, of course, is are these, and they're a bunch of little E-clips and things. And originally, when I took the cable off the selector mechanism on the other side, there was nothing holding it on. There was a clamp holding the outer cable on, but the inner cable wasn't secured, so I've got to put one of those on, and they're going to be really tricky. Well, that was a challenge. I should have put a flat washer under there. There was no clip holding that selector on before, but I'm just not going to take it off again because I'm going to drop it. I actually put a dab of grease on it before I put it there, but, well, I'll just hook that thing up and I should be good. Right, so I've finished, pretty much finished wiring everything up. If I turn that on, we've got the warning lamps, and we're cranking over. I might just turn the light on. Alright, so I'm pretty much finished wiring this thing up. I've just got a fluoro light down there. I'll just turn that to the side for 1 minute. If I turn this on, our warning lights come on, which are sort of down here. And we can crank the engine over. If we put it in dry, of course we don't get anything. And the same with all the other ones. I've checked them. There's reverse there. Not getting a sausage. So when we put it into neutral, of course we have a start signal. So our neutral starts working. It's all working well. The wipers work, but they're funny with the self-parking. And it's got this rear start arrangement, which is really cool. Oh yeah. Oh, that parked right. Sometimes I turned on before. Yeah, so it didn't park there. Anyway, play with the switch and it parks. The headlights, of course, we've got our illumination working, although it's not working so well on this button here. And of course I've got an earth mocked up there onto one of the dash lights, so we know that's all working well. Of course we've got headlights out there, which is all good. And if we turn the ignition on, which it is, we've got indicators. But of course there's no light at the back. It is dodgy with that can though. I've got to change that flasher can, so I'll get another one in tomorrow. What else have we got? I think we're pretty much done. We've got the wiring loom down here for the back. I'm just going to move that light so you can see it a bit better. Let's go down here. That's the rear loom. And so I've got to test those pinouts there. That's the old rear loom there. So that all gets culled and we plug in a new one. I've got to still trim that bit of cable tie there, but that's the sort of thing there. I'll tidy up these, whatever they're called, interior light switches. We have a feed for the interior light coming down there, which is working very, very well. We've also got this. Now, that's a light feed for the radio, so on the off chance the radio doesn't work, with the ignition on, that will light up the radio sort of light, if you know what I mean. Glove box light feed and cigarette lighter. They're the only ones. I haven't connected that one up yet. So these are all done. Of course, as I said, I've got to get a flasher can for it. That's the fuel gauge and temperature gauge. That's a constant feed for the interior lights and the clock, which I put in. And of course, down in here, we're still not all that tidy, but we're a lot better than we were. So a little bit more fiddling with that. Of course, in the next video, I've also got to put all the fabric tape on. So I'll re-tape it all, put the cluster in. Everything's going to be working well. To rewire the back, I've got plenty of terminals. I've got the other half of that terminal block. I need about $32 worth of 7-core trailer wire, 15 amp of course, and that will finish all the wiring in the car. So I'm estimating this has cost around $120, but I'll do a proper costing in the next video. So another thing we're going to do in the next video is we'll take a look at this. This is the old stereo, the original one from the car, which is upside down, and it looks absolutely knackered, but it is a valve job. It's got tubes in it. Now I've ordered another one, which I believe is a transistor one. There was about 5 or 6 different models of radio in these cars, so we'll have a look at this, we'll power it up, and we'll do all that in the next video as well. Anyway, whatever the case, drive safely, take care of your classic, and I'll see you later. Ta-da.